In a world that constantly demands you play by the rules, is it actually dangerous to be too good? Think about it for a second. If you had to choose between being loved for your honesty, truly, deeply loved for your virtue, or fueled for your influence, which one actually keeps you safe when the chips are down? Because we like to believe that virtue is its own reward. I mean, we're taught that in kindergarten. But history often tells a very different and much bloodier story. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we aren't just reading a book. We are peeling back the curtain on the uncomfortable, often controversial, but, undeniably effective mechanics of human interaction. We are looking at a text that has been banned in some U.S. prisons, studied religiously by CEOs, and whispered about in the corridors of power for decades. We were talking about the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now, for those who haven't read it or who maybe just know it by its reputation as a manipulator's Bible, we need to set the stage. Greene isn't just throwing out random Machiavellian advice.
No, not at all. He's a student of history. I mean, a serious student.
Right. He spent years synthesizing about 3,000 years of wisdom. He looked at the grand strategists, the statesmen, the courtiers, the seducers, and yes, the con artists. He took everyone from Sun Tzu to Casanova and distilled their methods into a definitive guide.
It really is a fascinating text, and I think it's so important to frame this correctly right from the start because people often get the wrong idea. This isn't just a history lesson. Greene presents this as a handbook on what he calls the arts of indirection. His central thesis is that power is a game, and it's a game that is, well, inescapable.
Inescapable. I find that idea kind of terrifying.
It is. You might say, I don't want to play power games. I just want to do my job and go home. But Greene would argue that trying to opt out only makes you powerless and ultimately miserable. You are in the game whether you like it or not.
So the only choice you have is whether you play it well.
Or play it badly. That's it.
Which is a heavy thought, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like being drafted into a sport you never practiced. But it's also kind of liberating if you accept it. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of these laws, and trust me, some of them are absolutely wild, I want to extend an invitation to you. If you love diving into these kinds of insights, into the mechanics of how the world actually works, you need to subscribe to the Audiobooks channel right now. We are constantly breaking down the world's best books, and you do not want to miss out on these captivating summaries. So hit that subscribe button to ensure you're always in the loop. All right, let's stop pretending we aren't all players in this game. Let's peel back the velvet glove and look at the iron hand inside. Where do we even begin with a book this dense?
We have to start with the context, which Greene calls the courtier's dilemma.
Okay.
This is laid out in the preface, and it sets the stage for everything else. The premise is that modern life is a paradox. On the surface, everything must appear civilized, decent, democratic, and fair.
We have to be nice.
Exactly. We have to be nice. If you are overtly aggressive, you get canceled or fired. But underneath that surface, the human animal hasn't changed. The same dark emotions, greed, envy, lust, hatred, are still boiling away.
So it's like we're all walking around in suits and ties, pretending to be cooperative, but internally we're still, fighting for the best cut of meat at the campfire.
That's a perfect way to put it. And Greene warns specifically against opting out. He points out that the people who claim they don't play the game, the ones who make a big show of their moral purity or their naivety.
We all know someone like that.
We do. And he says they're often the most skillful manipulators of all. They use their weakness or their virtue as a power move to guilt others or gain sympathy.
Wow.
So the core philosophy here is that power is amoral. It's like physics. You don't judge gravity as good or bad. You just understand that if you drop a rock, it falls. Greene asks us to judge actions by their effects, not by the intentions behind them.
That is a crucial distinction. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but the world judges us by our effects. So let's get into the laws themselves. And we have to start with law number 1.
The big one.
It's arguably the most famous and maybe the most critical mistake people make early in their careers. Law 1, never outshine the master. Now, I have to push back on this immediately. On the surface, this sounds so counterintuitive. We're taught to work hard, show off our skills, impress the boss, be indispensable. But Greene says that's a trap.
It is a huge trap because of a fundamental human trait that we often underestimate: insecurity.
Right.
When you display your talents too brightly, you might think you're impressing those above you. You think they're looking at you saying, wow, what a rising star. But often what you're actually doing is triggering their fear. You're making them feel inadequate.
And a master, a boss, a leader, a mentor who feels insecure is a dangerous thing.
A very dangerous thing.
There is a classic story in the book that illustrates this perfectly. It's the story of Nicolas Fouquet and King Louis XIV of France. This is back in the 1600s.
Right, Fouquet was the finance minister.
He was brilliant, wealthy, and he loved the finer things. When the king's prime minister died, Fouquet expected to take the top spot. But the king, who was young and pretty arrogant, decided to abolish the position entirely.
So Fouquet's on the outside looking in.
Exactly. So he thinks, okay, I need to get back in the king's good graces. I need to show him how valuable I am. So what does he do? He throws a party, but not just any party. He throws the most lavish, spectacular event anyone has ever seen at his private chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte.
We're talking a 7-course banquet featuring foods from the Orient that no one in France had even seen before.
He commissioned a new play by Molière to be performed for the occasion. He had this insane fireworks display. It was incredible.
It's magnificent. And that was exactly the problem.
Right.
Fouquet thought he was showing his loyalty and his value. He thought the king would look at this and say, wow, Fouquet is an asset. Look at his taste. Look at his connections. This guy makes me look good.
But Louis XIV, the Sun King, he looked at it and thought something very different.
He thought, this man is richer than me. He's more tasteful than me. He's more beloved than me. He is outshining me.
And the ending is just brutal. The king didn't pat him on the back. The very next day, the king had Fouquet arrested.
He was accused of embezzlement, which, to be fair, everyone was doing back then. It was practically part of the job description.
Right, that was just the excuse.
It was the excuse. He was thrown into prison for the rest of his life. He spent 20 years in solitary confinement because he threw a party that was too good. Precisely. And the takeaway here isn't to be incompetent. You still need to do your job and do it well.
Of course.
It's to make those above you feel comfortably superior. If you are smarter than your boss, hide it. Ask for their help even when you don't need it. Attribute your good ideas to their great guidance.
So you make them look brilliant.
You make them look brilliant, and they will lift you up. Make them look dim by comparison, and you're finished. At the end of the day, it's about managing the ego of the person who holds the keys to your future.
It's almost like you have to dim your own light so theirs seems brighter. It feels manipulative, but I can absolutely see how it's survival in a hierarchy. Okay, let's move to Law 4. Always say less than necessary.
Another good one.
This is one I struggle with personally because I talk for a living, but the logic here is fascinating. Why is silence so powerful?
Well, the logic is that words are a commodity. The more you say, the cheaper they become. And the more you talk, the higher the probability that you will say something foolish or reveal something you shouldn't.
Okay, that makes sense.
Powerful people understand that silence is intimidating. It makes them seem like they are in control, like they know something you don't. It forces the other person to project their own thoughts onto you.
There's a great anecdote about Henry Kissinger in the book regarding this. He was serving as Nixon's Secretary of State, and he was a master of this sort of psychological warfare.
Oh, yeah.
He had a staff member, Winston Lord, write a report for him. Lord worked on it for days, polished it, really put his soul into it, and sent it in. Kissinger sends it back with a simple note. Is this the best you can do?
Ouch.
Lord was mortified. He rewrote the whole thing, clarified his points, added more data, and sent it back. Again, Kissinger sends it back. Is this the best you can do?
No way.
This happened like 3 or 4 times. Finally, Winston Lord just snaps. He marches into Kissinger's office and says, damn it, yes, it's the best I can do. And Kissinger just looks at him over his glasses and says, fine, then I guess I'll read it now.
That is a perfect example. Kissinger didn't even read the earlier drafts. He used silence and a brief, intimidating question to force his subordinate to do all the work, to exhaust himself seeking approval.
That's incredible.
Silence makes people uncomfortable. When you are silent in a negotiation or a conversation, people rush to fill the void. They start babbling. They reveal their insecurities, their plans, their weaknesses. By saying less, you maintain your mystery and you gather information. It's about not giving away your power for free.
So zip it. Got it. I'm going to try that on my kids later, though I doubt it'll work as well as it did for Kissinger. Let's move into section 2, which is about the people around us. Managing friends and enemies. Greene drops a bombshell with Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies.
This one really gets people.
It goes against everything you're taught. We want to work with our friends. We trust our friends. We start businesses with our college roommates. Why does Greene say this is so dangerous?
Because friendship blinds you. When you hire a friend, you rarely know them as well as you think you do in a professional context. And more importantly, the dynamic of power changes the friendship. If you hire a friend, you are doing them a favor. Paradoxically, this often breeds ingratitude. It breeds envy. They start to feel entitled. They might feel that they don't have to work as hard because, hey, we're buddies.
Right. Don't worry, he'll let it slide.
Exactly. Greene argues that friends often become spoiled and tyrannical. They come to resent the charity.
It's the familiarity breeds contempt idea. But enemies, how can an enemy be better? I sound suicidal.
Think about the psychology of it. If you take a former enemy, someone who maybe you defeated or who was on the opposing side, and you bring them into your fold, they have everything to prove. They know you don't trust them implicitly, so they have to work twice as hard to show their loyalty. They are on thin ice, and that makes them diligent. Greene uses the example of the Byzantine Emperor Michael III.
Right, Michael III. This story is just tragic. He had a best friend named Basilius. Basilius was a stable boy, literally cleaning up after horses.
A very humble background.
And Michael III elevates him, gives him money, gives him titles, brings him into the inner circle because he loved him as a friend. He wanted to help him. He thought, I'm the emperor. I can change this guy's life.
And Basilius, instead of being grateful, became insatiable. He wanted more power, more wealth. He saw Michael's generosity not as kindness, but as a sign that Michael was weak. Eventually, the envy just consumed him. He murdered Michael III and took the throne for himself.
His best friend.
His best friend. It's a tragic story, but Greene's point is that Michael created the monster by feeding it. He quotes Voltaire, who said, "Lord, protect me from my friends. I can take care of my enemies."
That is chilling. It really frames gratitude in a different light. That sometimes doing a favor creates a debt that the other person ends up hating you for. So keep your friends for drinks on the weekend, but maybe hire the guy who tried to take your job.
In a strategic sense, yes, it's safer. An enemy you've turned is often more loyal than a friend who feels entitled.
Let's talk about another danger in our social circles. Law 10, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. This sounds a bit cold, doesn't it? Don't hang out with unlucky people. Is this just about superstition?
It sounds callous, I agree, but Greene argues it's a matter of emotional survival. He views emotional states as infectious, just like a virus.
Okay.
We've all met people who are perpetually unlucky. Drama just follows them everywhere. They always have a crisis. Their car breaks down. Their landlord hates them. They lose their wallet.
Right, the drama magnet.
Exactly. Greene suggests that this often isn't bad luck. It's a result of their own destructive patterns and poor judgment.
And if you try to help them?
You get pulled down with them. You catch their anxiety, their pessimism, their chaos. You think you're throwing them a lifeline, but really they are just pulling you underwater with them. Greene says you should associate with the happy and the fortunate, not just for networking, but because their attitudes, confidence, cheerfulness, stability are also infectious. It's about protecting your own mindset.
It's the idea that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If they're all drowning, you're going to get wet. Okay, one more in this section regarding groups. Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
This is a fantastic one for group dynamics. Often, when there is trouble in a group, a team, a company, a social circle, we try to address the whole group.
We should hold a big meeting. We say, guys, morale is low. We need to fix this.
Which Greene says is a total waste of time. Usually the trouble can be traced back to one single individual, the stirrer, the person who is poisoning the well.
The ringleader, the one whispering in the break room.
Yeah, the shepherd. If you allow that person to operate, they influence everyone else. They create the narrative. Greene's strategy is simple and brutal. Don't negotiate with the shepherd. Don't try to reason with them.
What do you do?
Isolate them. Banish them. Fire them. Once the source of the negativity is gone, the sheep, the followers who are just going along with it, will lose their direction and settle down. The group dynamic resets once the toxic element is removed.
Brutal efficiency. It's like surgery. Cut out the tumor, save the patient. It makes sense, though. How often have we seen one bad apple spoil the whole barrel? Let's transition to Section 3, the art of manipulation and information. This is where we get into the real spycraft stuff. Law 3, conceal your intentions. The basic idea here seems simple. If people know what you want, they can predict your moves. They can block you. They can prepare. So you have to keep them in the dark. But how do you do that without just looking secretive? Because if I'm just sitting there not saying anything, people get suspicious.
That's a nuance. You don't hide your intentions by closing up. You hide them by talking endlessly about fake intentions.
Oh, misdirection.
Pure misdirection. Greene talks about using decoy objects of desire and red herrings. You talk loudly and passionately about something you supposedly want just to distract everyone from what you actually want.
He used the analogy of the sheepskin, right? A fox wearing a sheepskin can walk right into the chicken coop because he looks harmless.
Right. And a key tool here is false sincerity. People have a natural tendency to trust appearances. If you seem passionate and sincere about a particular goal, people will believe you.
They won't look for a hidden motive.
Why would they? They think they've already seen your motive. If you seem to believe your own lies, others will believe them too. It's about putting on a convincing performance.
It's the honest rogue approach. You admit to a small, harmless mistake to cover up a big, calculated maneuver.
Exactly. Or you just act incredibly friendly and open, which leads us directly to Law 14.
Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. This law emphasizes the critical importance of information. You need to know your opponent's weaknesses, their habits, their desires. And there's a fantastic story about Joseph Duveen, who was the greatest art dealer of his time. He was desperate to get Andrew Mellon, the industrialist, as a client. But Mellon was notoriously difficult to reach.
He was a fortress. He didn't want to talk to art dealers. He hated being sold to.
So Duveen didn't approach him directly. What did he do?
Instead, he spent months bribing Mellon's staff. He paid the valets, the maids, the drivers. He learned everything about Mellon. He learned where he walked, what he liked to talk about, what his tastes were in art, even the gossip he liked.
And then, the accidental meeting.
Right. Duveen arranges to bump into Mellon at the National Gallery in London. And because he has all this intel, he strikes up a conversation that is perfectly tailored to Mellon's interests.
So Mellon is just charmed.
He is. He thinks, wow, this guy really gets me. We have so much in common. He had no idea that every word out of Duveen's mouth was calculated based on months of espionage.
And Duveen became Mellon's exclusive dealer and made a fortune.
He did. It appeared to be a charming coincidence, but it was a military operation.
That's the power of information. If you know what makes a person tick, you can influence them without them ever realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the best way to get that information is to play dumb. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker.
This touches on vanity again. Intelligence is a major point of pride for almost everyone. No one likes to feel stupid.
That's for sure.
So Greene suggests the best way to drop someone's guard is to make them feel smarter than you.
So if I act like I'm a bit slow or naive or I'm just not quite getting it,
then your opponent stops viewing you as a threat. They get arrogant. They might even try to help you or take advantage of you, revealing their own hands in the process.
So if they think you are a sucker,
they won't suspect you of having an ulterior motive. You become invisible in a strategic sense.
It's the Columbo method. The detective in the old TV show. Just one more thing, while scratching his head, and meanwhile, he's already solved the murder.
It's exactly that, but it takes a lack of ego to pull that off, though. You have to be okay with people thinking you're dumb.
That's the hard part.
And that's why it's so rare and so effective.
Now, Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. This one is deep. Greene says, the truth is often ugly and unpleasant.
And because the truth is ugly, because life is hard, money is tight, relationships are messy, people have a desperate need to escape. They crave romance, drama, and fantasy.
So appealing to reality is a losing strategy.
He argues that it is. But if you can manufacture a fantasy, you gain immense power. You become an oasis in the desert.
The anecdote for this one is wild. George Salmanazar. This was in 1700s London. He shows up and claims to be from the island of Formosa, which is modern-day Taiwan. But back then, almost no one in London had ever been there.
So he just made it up, all of it. He invented a language, he invented bizarre customs. He told people that in Formosa they ate raw meat and sacrificed thousands of children to gods every year.
And people believed him.
They loved him. He became a celebrity. He wrote a best-selling book. He lectured at Oxford. The key was that he played to their fantasy of the exotic. London was boring. He brought them a strange, exciting story they wanted to hear.
Wow.
If he had just been a regular guy from France, which is what he actually was, no one would have cared. He created a spectacle, a fantasy, and wrote it to fame.
It just shows that people will ignore gaping holes in logic if the story's good enough. We want the magic trick to be real. Moving on to Section 4. Strategic aggression and defense. Sometimes you can't just be a manipulator, you have to be a warrior. Law 15. Crush your enemy. Totally.
This is a law that Greene borrows directly from military strategy, from leaders like Moses and Napoleon. The idea is that if you defeat an enemy but leave them with even a little bit of power or dignity, they will harbor a grudge.
And they'll come back.
They will recover. And when they come back, they will be fueled by a desire for revenge. You can't leave embers burning in the fire.
Greene points to Empress Wu of China here.
Yes, one of the most ruthless figures in history. She ruled for 40 years in a completely male-dominated society. How? Because she didn't just defeat her rivals, she eliminated them.
She killed off anyone who threatened her power, even within her own family.
It sounds horrific to modern ears, but in the context of the game she was playing, her ruthlessness ensured her survival. If she had shown mercy, she would have been overthrown immediately.
It's the Cobra mindset. If you strike, you have to finish it. But what if you are the one who is weak? What if you are the one about to be crushed? That brings us to Law 22. Use the surrender tactic.
This is so crucial. When you are weaker, Greene says, never fight for honor's sake. If you fight a battle you know you will lose just to preserve your dignity, you will be destroyed. Instead, you should surrender.
But isn't surrender defeat?
Not if you use it as a tool. Surrender buys you time. It stops the aggression. If you fold, the conqueror feels satisfied. They relax. This gives you time to recover, to rebuild your strength, to find their weaknesses, and to wait for their power to wane.
Greene uses the example of the Melians during the Peloponnesian War. Athens came to conquer them. The Melians were weak, but they refused to surrender.
Right. They gave these big speeches about honor and hope and how the gods would protect them.
And what happened?
And Athens wiped them off the map. They killed all the men and sold the women and children into slavery. Their honor got them annihilated. Greene argues that if they had surrendered, they would have survived to fight another day. By turning the other cheek, you can actually infuriate and unsettle your opponent because you deny them the satisfaction of a fight, all while you conserve your own energy.
It's the ultimate long game. Losing the battle to win the war. Okay, let's talk about finding leverage. Law 33. Discover each man's thumb screw.
A thumb screw is a metaphor for a weakness. Everyone has one. A gap in the castle wall.
What kind of weakness?
It might be an insecurity, a secret pleasure, a need for approval, or a hidden shame, something they can't control.
How do you find it?
Greene suggests looking for contrasts. This is a brilliant psychological tip. If someone is incredibly loud and thumps their chest about how brave they are often hiding cowardice.
Okay.
If someone presents a prudish, morally superior exterior, they often have a lascivious soul or some hidden vice they are fighting against.
So the overly tough guy is actually insecure. The super nice person is actually repressing a lot of anger.
Exactly. Once you find that weakness, that thumb screw, you can use it. You can turn it to your advantage to control them or to negotiate with them. It's about finding the lever that moves the person.
And finally in this section, Law 29, plan all the way to the end.
Most people are tactical, not strategic. They react to what is happening right now. They get emotional. Greene says you must think it through to the finish. What are the consequences of this victory? What if I win the battle but create 10 new enemies?
Don't let success go to your head.
Right, know when to stop. And part of this planning is the concept of sprezzatura. This is an Italian term from the Renaissance courtier Castiglione. It means studied nonchalance.
Making it look easy.
Yes. You practice and plan relentlessly, but in public, you make your accomplishments seem effortless, like you just woke up and did it. If people see how hard you work, it breaks the illusion of your power. But if you make it look natural, you appear to have a godlike gift.
It's like a duck on a pond, calm on the surface, paddling like crazy underneath.
Exactly like that.
Section 5 is all about perception, reputation, and image. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life.
This is maybe the most important law of all. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. It's a force multiplier. If you have a reputation for being formidable, people will surrender before you even fight.
And if you have a reputation for being honest,
you can practice deception more easily. Your reputation precedes you and does the work for you.
but once it slips,
It is incredibly hard to get back. Once you are painted as a liar or fool or weak, everything you do is viewed through that lens. Greene advises that you must make your reputation unassailable.
and on the flip side,
Aggressively, you can destroy enemies simply by poking holes in their reputations. Slander and gossip are traditional weapons for a reason. They work. It's easier to destroy a reputation than to build one.
wow. Now let's talk about something really fascinating. Cults. Law 27. Create a cult-like following.
This law taps into a deep, deep human need. People have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. They want a cause. They want meaning. Greene lays out a blueprint for how charlatans and leaders have used this for centuries.
He actually lists 5 steps, right? Let's break those down.
He does. Step 1, keep it vague but simple. Use big words, full of promise, but don't be specific. Revitalization, transformation, the new way. You want to create a cloud of enthusiasm.
Okay, step 2.
Emphasize enthusiasm over rationality. It's about the feeling, not the facts. Use sensory stimulation, incense, music, chanting.
Step 3 is structure.
Right. Structure the group. Create a hierarchy. Give people titles so they feel special and part of an in-group.
And step 4 is about the money.
Disguise your source of income. Make it look like spiritual work, like you're above worldly concerns, even if you're getting rich. And step 5 is the most important.
Set up an US versus them dynamic.
That's the one. We are the enlightened ones, and everyone outside is the enemy, trying to bring us down.
That is huge.
It is. Greene tells the story of Francesco Giuseppe Borri, a guy in Milan in the 1600s. He claimed he had a vision from the Archangel Michael and was chosen to lead the army of the new pope.
He went from being a gambler to a mystic leader.
Just like that, he used all these steps. He promised his followers the philosopher's stone that could turn metal to gold. He gathered a massive following and immense power simply by playing on people's desperate need to believe in magic.
And you see this today? It works just as well in business or politics as it did in 1650. You see the same dynamics in certain corporate cultures or lifestyle brands. Finally, in this section, Law 34, be royal in your own fashion.
This is the fake it till you make it law. But on a deeper level, it's the strategy of the crown. If you act like a king, you are more likely to be treated like one.
And if you act common,
if you accept less, if you shuffle your feet and apologize for your existence, people will treat you as common. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
the example here is Christopher Columbus.
Columbus is a perfect example. He wasn't an aristocrat. He was a weaver's son. But when he was trying to get funding for his voyages, he didn't beg. He demanded.
What did he demand?
He acted like he was a descendant of Italian royalty. He demanded the title of Grand Admiral of the Ocean Sea. He demanded 10% of all revenues from the new lands.
Which was an insane request.
It was audacious. But because he set his price so high and carried himself with such dignity, the Spanish court thought, well, maybe he really is worth it. If he had asked for a small salary, they probably would have dismissed him. You set your own value.
We have arrived at the final section, Section 6, the ultimate law. Law 48. Assume formlessness.
This is the synthesis of everything. It's very Taoist, it's very Sun Tzu. By taking a shape, by having a visible plan, you open yourself to attack.
Why is that?
If you are rigid, if you always act the same way, if you always defend the same fortress, your enemy knows exactly how to destroy you.
Don't be a sitting duck.
Right. Be like water. Adapt. Change. Accept that nothing is certain. The world is chaotic. The best way to protect yourself is to be fluid. Never bet on stability.
It reminds me of the famous Bruce Lee quote, "Be water, my friend."
Exactly. Greene quotes Mao Zedong, who said, "When we fight you, we make sure you can't get away." Mao's strategy was constant movement, constant adaptation. You can't hit a target that is never in the same place twice. It's about letting go of the need to be right or consistent in favor of being effective.
So let's unpack this. We've gone through the velvet glove, the spies, the courtier's dilemma, the utter ruthlessness of Empress Wu, and the formlessness of Mao. What does this all mean for us at the end of the day?
To summarize, the 48 Laws of Power argues that power is a social game. It requires studying people. It requires mastering your own emotions. That is the absolute foundation. You cannot control others if you cannot control yourself.
And it requires taking the indirect route.
Always.
It sounds cold. I mean, it sounds manipulative.
It can be. But Greene makes a final argument that the better you are at dealing with power, the better friend, lover, and person you become.
How? That seems like a contradiction.
Because you start bungling through life, causing accidental pain. You stop being the honest fool who destroys relationships because you have no tact. You stop getting crushed by people with bad intentions because you can see them coming.
So you become an artist of human interaction rather than a victim of it.
Exactly. You don't have to use these laws to destroy people, but you must know them to stop people from destroying you.
That is a powerful place to land. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought, a challenge for the week. Look around your office. Look at your circle of friends. Look at the news today. Who is playing the honest fool, wearing their heart on their sleeve, and who is quietly wearing the sheepskin, concealing their intentions, and moving the pieces on the board? And, more importantly, which one are you?
Remember, the game is being played whether you want to participate or not.
This has been a deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power. See you next time on Audible Books.